Hello, all you beautiful souls. How are you doing today? I wanted to discuss following our intuition and how scary it can be and how your mind will convince you otherwise. And so there's these two internal voices that are kind of battling each other. And so how do we move through that? And how do we continuously step towards our intuition? Even if there's another voice saying no, or you can't, or stopping you, and how to tell the difference between the two, right? So I shared a quote yesterday from young Pablo talking about how following our intuition can sometimes be really scary when you're stepping into the unknown, and your heart, your intuition may be ready, but your mind is full of fear and holds you back. And so when we stop following our intuition, what happens is it creates stagnation in our life. We become bored. We become complacent. We become robotic. And we feel sometimes as if there must be more to this life, but we can't necessarily put our finger on it. And so we continuously live this life, people pleasing, doing it for everyone else around us. We get influenced by social media, the ads, and we live our life externally instead of listening to our internal voice and living it for our true authentic self, living it for our highest purpose, whatever that is. And so, first off, there's a difference between our intuition and our ego. And to know the difference, our intuition is a voice of love. It usually comes in the form of when you least expect it. And it'll always encourage you to think outside the box, to do something different, or to commit to something that maybe is difficult, but we might not see tangible results right now, right? Our ego might not see results, so we want to give up, but it really fuels us. But because we don't see any money or we don't see any progress, we want to give up right before, we hit the gold mine. Kind of like that picture that you see, right? Two people are axe picking, I think it is. I should know this from Minecraft with Dwight, my little guy. And the one guy gives up right before he sees the gold, right? And so the intention is not to do it for the gold. That's the byproduct of our actions and consistency and dedication, right? So if we feel good along the way and it fuels us as we follow our intuition, then all of these physical manifestations will come to life, but there's a gestation period that takes time. Versus our fear voice, which is ego. And our ego likes us to stay in dysfunction. It keeps us playing small. It convinces us of what's the safest route because maybe we were, exposed, or maybe we were scared, or we were judged when we wanted to do something creative, right? And then so now we have a belief that tells us we are not good enough. And so our ego tends to shrink. Our ego tends to be robotic and keeps us stagnant. And it will discourage us from things that make us feel lighter. So those are the differences. And I think Corey, I forget his last name. I follow him on Instagram, but his name's Corey something. He talks about how following your ego will feel like it's a rush and it needs to happen right away. And it's more of this intense, not excited energy, but an urgency energy. Whereas your intuition is more calm. It's more grounded. It's not feeling rushed. It's enjoying the process. And so that's how you can tell the difference between the two. And so I know a lot of us, including myself at first, was like, intuition, what is it? Does it even exist? And if you want more information, especially if you're more of the science person or more in the medical kind of side of things, Dr. Gabor Mate, I think his name is. Gabor space Mate, maybe with a little accent, I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up. He, who is a Canadian physician, talks about the importance of following your, not only your brain, but your gut. You have 3 brains. Okay, let me restart. You have 3 brains. Hopefully I got this right because I've seen the video once. And I just do this on the fly. So if I'm wrong, please refer back to him. What he says is the right information. So we have 3 brains technically. We have our head, right? So our mind, our heart center, but we also have our gut, right? But he talks about those instincts. And when all 3 of them work in harmony, that is when we are most aligned. And so a lot of the times the medical industry dismisses intuition, is what he was explaining. And so I think there's an importance to have both working in harmony together in order to get the best results in your life, right? There's not one or the other. It's not like black or white. I feel like there's this gray area. And it's funny because my therapist was telling me about that, is I was working through, I have to do this or this or this. I can't do this unless I do this. And I kept going on, and she's like, hey, you're really like a black and white person, aren't you? And she's like, did you know there's like a gray area in between? And I was like, oh yeah, you know, it can meet halfway. You don't have to have one or the other. They can coexist simultaneously, and that's where the beauty lies, is in that gray area when you mix the two, and that looks different to all of us, right? And so intuition, now that we defined intuition, now I want to talk about how to follow your intuition. I think it's really important to create space. We all have busy lives, and I know I say this all the time, but meditation is key. If you can create space to meditate first thing in the morning and before you go to bed, and after your meditation, you can journal if you want. It's called free journaling, where you don't know what you're going to say, but you're just going to write stuff down. And at first it's weird. You might just write down how you felt. You might write down, I don't know, different things that happen throughout your meditation, the thoughts that come up. It may not be very intuitive at first, and that's okay. You're learning to build this muscle, build this connection with your intuition. But as you meditate, what happens is you start observing, you detach yourself from your mind so you can start observing your thoughts that are passing by, right? That's the goal of meditation, if there is a goal to meditation. But if you can eventually watch those thoughts and create space between you and those thoughts, that's number 1. And then number 2, you create space for that intuitive higher perspective. For me, intuition is like your source, is where we come from. And I'm in a really special place right now because I'm pregnant. And so that baby right now is closest to the source, where we come from. And it doesn't matter what religion you're from, we can all believe different things, but what I'm talking about is the energy as a whole, right? And so this energy is within that baby. So if you're pregnant, I have this divine energy within me, and I can tap into that as well. And so when we meditate and we slowly start observing our thoughts, what happens is we become detached from the ego, and we're able now to create space for our intuition to step in. And at first it's going to be weird because it's going to feel like you have 2 different voices. You're going to feel maybe a little crazy. I know I did at times. I felt like I was being pulled in so many different directions. And then so you might get an insight one day. And I shared the story in the past, but I was having a really rough day years ago, and I had this voice saying, you know, go to Starbucks. And I lived in the country back then. And I'm like, why am I going to go to Starbucks? And so long story short, I listened to that voice. My ego was telling me not to go. Every reason why I shouldn't. I went to Starbucks anyways, right? It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like you're wasting your time. You're not being productive, but I had crappy energy anyways, and I wasn't getting anything done. I was stuck in my stuff. And so what ended up going to Starbucks, and the guy that was delivering the food had incredible energy and made me laugh, and I had my coffee, and then went back home to the country and like got so much stuff done. It was completely shifted 180. Who would have known listening to that voice would have shifted my energy? And that's the most important thing too that I want to insert here, is that sometimes we don't think it's productive not to do anything and sit and meditate to our brain, to our ego self, because we're not physically doing anything tangible that we can measure. And so ego doesn't take into consideration the energy side of things. And if you know me, I love working with energy, right? And so when we dive into our energy and we listen to this intuitive voice, like at the coffee shop, I may have took an hour or whatever to go to Twigs and back. By the time I drive there, blah, 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 come back and settle in. But out of that hour time, right, I sacrificed to the ego, right? That hour of time I could have been productive, doing work, doing something. But then the last 4 hours of my day were 10 times more productive than if I wouldn't have done that, because I would have been stuck in this yucky energy and I would have felt bleh, and I wouldn't have been as focused, right? So that is the power. And I'm using a really random example, but that's how it's going to feel when you first start. And you won't know until you try. There's going to be a trial and error time when you implement this work. And when you follow your intuition, right, like I mentioned yesterday in young Pablo's quote about intuition, is that your mind is going to tell you you're not ready. It's always going to use an excuse on why you shouldn't. And this is where we're going to have perseverance. So even if you're not feeling confident, or you're feeling weird, or you're feeling like you're stepping outside your comfort zone and you're shaking in your boots, right? Brené Brown talks about this, right, in her vulnerability chat on TED Talk, is stepping into that arena is scary. Like me posting these videos again after being away from it for so long has been scary, because I'm opening that part up of me again. And for me, it's new again. Not that I lost that muscle, but it's like working out. If you worked out for a couple of years and you do it consistently and then you stop for a while, right? Life threw me a curveball. I had to restructure my business, bring it online, figure all that stuff out. And then, because of the COVID and my business, finances were tight. My sister-in-law got cancer too. Took care of her for 3 months, then had to go get a job as I was building this, and I was feeling burnt out. And, with figuring out how I was going to do things, and then the whole situation happened, where I got criticized and critiqued for my work and stepping outside of my lane, right? And so I had to really sit with all of that and be like, hey, I need to take a breath. Like, I need to restructure, reevaluate, sit and take care of me and my family first, and rebuild this business on a solid foundation. But that was my intuitive nudge. My intuitive nudge was to stop. And I don't like stopping. I'm an Aries, but it wasn't working. There was so many layers and so many things that was happening, piling on top of each other over the years. And I shared like I was showing up trying to prove myself, and I didn't want to be like that, because you can't be vulnerable and prove yourself. And I teach off of vulnerability, right? And so my intuition was telling me to stop. And that was scary to me, because I was so used to just go, 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 go. That was ego. Go, no matter what, burn yourself out, do this, do that. You can't stop. And it's like, whoa, let's put the brakes on. Let's sit with this. Let's help yourself and be there for your family and restructure everything. And I didn't know what was going to come next after that, right? I didn't know if I could do this. And I felt like a failure going back to the corporate world, because Inner Beauty wasn't successful financially, even though there was a bunch of crap that happened that took me away from my business that I had to handle personally, right? So that is what I mean by 2 examples of intuition. It's sometimes not easy to make that decision, but it feels lighter to do it. It might be scary, but it feels lighter. Like for me, stopping and putting a pause in Inner Beauty felt lighter, because I can actually have room to breathe at night in the mornings and start taking care of myself. It was too much. I had to process a bunch of things I didn't have time to process, because I was working and doing Inner Beauty on the side, and just hustle with heart, yes, and intention, but I need to take a step back. So I hope those examples help, right? I'm sharing that because talking about intuition can be sometimes hard to define. So by giving examples, hopefully from my life, will help you in your own life. And know that you can never get it wrong. You can follow that voice, and you might not know if it's intuition or ego, take action, and then look back and assess and be like, oh wait, You know, that maybe was more ego, and that's okay. You don't have to ego. You don't have to explain why. You can just be aware of that and know, right? It's like picking up a weight and working out and not realizing you don't have the right posture. And then the next time be like, oh, I'm really sore, to a point where you correct yourself the next time and you maybe hold, instead of holding the weight like more like that, you hold it to support yourself, right? Same thing with your intuition. It's a trial and error period. Okay. Is there anything else I want to talk about intuition? I think that's good. I think that's good for today. Stay tuned. I'm going to start creating a wait list. I am developing some stuff in the background as I have time and energy. I'm just really focusing on me, myself, baby, family. We've been through a lot lately, so I want to take the time for myself. And before I jump into anything with Inner Beauty, I want to build this foundation extremely solid. And there's a lot of things that I need to shift and need to change, thanks to things that's happened over the years. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to follow your intuition, but it's also okay to be afraid. It's normal to be afraid. You're stepping into something new, and your nervous system needs time to adapt to that newness. Just because your nervous system is resisting, please remember that your nervous system is built on your belief system, which stems from the past. So any pain that you have associated with things of trying new things can bring up your nervous system and stress and a lot of things that come up. And so we doubt our intuition, we doubt the next step, because it does bring up different things. And there's tools for that. There's self-care that I'll talk about in another video, on how to help calm your nervous system in the moment, and also creating a healthy routine so that you can start retraining and reprogram your belief system, your mindset, and help calm the nervous system prior to these situations. So when you want to follow your intuition and you might get this pain that comes up, or you might get nervous, or maybe it's a trigger. I mean, there's so many depths and layers and complexity, complex things to that self-care is really, really, really important, because it's going to help calm the nervous system so that you can continue. There's a big seagull going, caw, caw. Thanks for saying hi. So you can calm the nervous system, which will help you continuously take that action and not pivot backwards to your old habits and old routines, which it will happen, by the way. I'm living proof of that, all right? We're human, we're not perfect, but you are perfectly imperfect, and I don't want you to forget that. So give yourself some grace, compassion, and love. Mwah!